"Hey, Grandpa. You can't be here. This area is for authorized personnel only." The voice was young, sharp, and drenched in the kind of self-importance that only comes with a brand new uniform. Private Decker stood with his chest puffed out, his boots polished to a mirror shine, looking down at the old man sitting on the simple metal bench. The old man didn't seem to hear him. His gaze was fixed on the sprawling training grounds beyond the window, where figures in camouflage moved with fluid, practiced lethality through a mock village. His eyes, a pale, washed-out blue, were clear and steady, tracking the movements with an unnerving focus. He wore a faded flannel shirt and worn denim jeans, his hands resting on his knees gnarled, the knuckles swollen with age. The skin a roadmap of scars and liver spots, yet they lay perfectly still, projecting a sense of deep, unshakable calm. Decker cleared his throat louder this time. "Did you hear me, old-timer? This is a secure military facility. You need to show me your credentials or I'm going to have to escort you out." The old man slowly turned his head, his movements economical and deliberate, and looked at the young private with an unreadable expression, no fear. No confusion, not even annoyance, only simple, patient observation, as if studying a curious new species of insect. "I'm just watching," the old man said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble like stones shifting at the bottom of a river. "Yeah, well, the show's over for you," another young soldier, Private Gallo, chimed in, swaggering over to stand beside Decker. "This isn't a public park. This is where real soldiers train. You wouldn't understand." The old man's gaze shifted to Gallo, then back to the training field. One of the figures on the field dropped to a knee, rifle up in a single seamless motion, and the old man gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod of approval. This blatant disregard for their authority grated on the two privates. Fresh out of basic training, brimming with rules and regulations, and now confronted with a quiet, unassuming old man breaking one right in front of them. "That's it," Decker said, his patience snapping. "On your feet." He reached out and placed a firm hand on the old man's shoulder. And the moment his fingers made contact, something changed, a subtle shift. But to anyone paying close attention, as profound as a seismic event. The old man's back, slightly stooped with age, straightened by a fraction of an inch. His shoulders squared. The placid calm in his eyes was replaced by a flicker of something ancient and dangerous, a light banked for decades but never extinguished. The pressure of the young soldier's hand became a key in a lock. It touched not just his flannel shirt, but a memory. The smell of disinfectant and floor wax was suddenly replaced by cordite, salt water, and blood. The distant pops of training rounds became the deafening roar of real gunfire. He was no longer in a sterile observation deck at Fort Benning, but back in a jungle, mud sucking at his boots, gear weighing him down, feeling the phantom pressure of a teammate's hand on his shoulder. "Stay frosty. We go on 3. The memory was so vivid that for a heartbeat, the world dissolved into a symphony of past violence and brotherhood. He blinked, and the mess hall came back into focus. Decker was still there, face a mask of youthful arrogance. "Let's go, Pops. Don't make this difficult." But the old man's stillness now unnerved him. A taut wire tension radiated from the man. "I think you should take your hand off him." The quiet voice came from a corner table, cutting through the hum of the room like a razor. Decker and Gallo turned to see 8 men in civilian clothes, jeans, t-shirts, worn baseball caps, big, lean, powerful, moving with an economy of motion that spoke of years of intense discipline. The man who had spoken, the biggest of the group with a weathered face and all-seeing eyes, rose to his feet. Decker, flustered, tried to reassert his authority. "This is official business, sir. This man is in a restricted area and refuses to cooperate." "We heard you," the man said, voice level but edged with steel. "And I'm telling you, take your hand off him." The other 7 men didn't move, but their collective gaze fell on Decker like a physical weight assessing threats. calculating weaknesses, promising swift consequences. Decker hesitated, hand still on the old man's shoulder. "I'm under orders to keep this area clear," he stammered. "Whose orders?" the big man asked, stepping closer. Before Decker could answer, the old man spoke. "It's all right, son," he said calmly, looking up at the young private. "The boy is just doing his job." He patted Decker's hand with his own gnarled one in a gesture both disarming and dismissive, then slowly rose to his feet. As he stood, the 8 men also rose as if on a silent, prearranged signal, moving with shared purpose to form a loose semicircle around him, a fortress wall of muscle and unwavering intent. The leader ignored the privates now, his hard face softening with profound, reverential respect. "Master Chief," he said, voice thick with emotion, "we didn't know you'd be here." The old man offered a small, weary smile. "Just wanted to see how the new generation was shaping up. See if they're still teaching them the right way to hold a rifle." At the words Master Chief, a jolt went through Decker. It was a naval rank, but the way the man said it, like a title of royalty, chilled him. The big man nodded toward the training field. "They're good, sir, but they're not you." Then he snapped to perfect attention. And one by one, the other 7 men did the same 8 elite warriors standing ramrod straight. Their silent, unwavering respect aimed at the frail-looking old man. Through the charged atmosphere, a new voice cut like a blade. "Sergeant." It wasn't loud, but it carried such weight, such command, that the entire room froze. Every head turned. Sergeant Croft stopped mid-motion, his hand still clamped on Samuel's arm. He looked over his shoulder, and his blood ran cold. Admiral Charles Hayes stood just 10 feet away, his face carved from cold fury, his 4-star rank gleaming under the lights. His aides flanked him, and beside them stood the young petty officer who had disappeared moments earlier. The crowd parted instinctively as the Admiral advanced. Croft instantly released Samuel's arm and snapped to attention, color draining from his face. "Admiral, sir, this man was trespassing, sir." He was unresponsive and causing a disturbance, but the Admiral wasn't even looking at him. His icy blue gaze was locked entirely on the old man in the damp tweed jacket. He stepped forward, slow and deliberate, polished shoes clicking against the marble. He stopped directly in front of Samuel, the highest-ranking officer in the fleet, standing before a man who looked like he had nothing. The room held its breath. Then something happened no one could have predicted. "Admiral." Hayes raised his hand and delivered a slow, deliberate, perfectly executed salute, a salute given only to superior officers. Or to the flag itself. Silence thickened. Shock rippled through the crowd. Sergeant Croft stared, his mind failing to process what he was seeing. An admiral saluting a homeless man. It broke every rule of rank he understood. But the admiral wasn't finished. He lowered his hand and looked at Samuel with an expression of deep reverence. "Commander Peterson," he said, voice resonant with emotion. "I should have known you'd be here today. You should have received a formal invitation. That was an oversight, and I apologize." He gestured toward the rebreather inside the display case. "Come to see your old friend?" Samuel gave a small, weary nod, the faintest smile touching his face. "It's been a long time, Charlie," he said, speaking as if to an equal, not to a 4-star admiral. A murmur swept through the crowd as the truth began to dawn. The admiral turned to face them all, his stare settling with crushing force on Sergeant Croft. "For those who do not know," he began, voice booming, "you are in the presence of a living legend. This is Commander Samuel Peterson." The air trembled with the revelation. He is not a commissioned officer in the traditional sense. His rank was granted by presidential directive for acts of valor, so significant and so classified they could never be publicly acknowledged. The admiral pointed to the glass case. In 1968, when a U.S. spy plane went down in the Baltic Sea, the Soviets were racing for the wreckage. A 5-man UD team entered near-freezing waters at depths barely survivable with the technology of the day. Their breathing equipment failed. But one man this jury-rigged a repair using a piece of rubber from his dive fins and his own ingenuity. Because of him, the team completed the mission and recovered intelligence that prevented a major international crisis. He placed a reverent hand on Samuel's shoulder. He swam 3 hours in darkness, towing critical wreckage and guiding his men to safety. Commander Peterson is a plank owner of SEAL Team 2. He served in 3 wars. He received the Navy Cross in a ceremony so classified even I wasn't allowed to attend. He doesn't wear his medals because, as he once told me, the only honors that matter are the names of the men who didn't come home. The Admiral's voice hardened. Turning back to Croft, he is a hero of the silent service. And you, Sergeant, you threw water on him. The words landed like physical blows. Croft's face went chalk white. His body locked in a posture of horror, shame radiating from him. He looked between the Admiral's wrath and the quiet old man he had shoved, insulted, and humiliated.